The WNBA playoffs are underway. Game 1 is behind us, and we're here doing a full breakdown on Hoops 360. We're going to talk about Veronica Burton. She is your 2025 Most Improved Player, plus Game 1 breakdowns and what does Breanna Stewart's injury mean for the Liberty, not just for the rest of the first round, but potentially the rest of the playoffs. All of that plus so much more. Let's get into it. We have full game breakdowns for all 4 games that we saw on Sunday. Game 1, round 1 of the WNBA playoffs. But first, Ice Young, Caroline Fenton, hanging out with you here on Hoops 360. First, let's get into some awards. It was announced on Monday afternoon, just before we started to sit down to record this podcast, that Veronica Burton was named the 2025 WNBA Most Improved Player. She got 68 of 72 votes. Alicia Gray, Natisha Hiedeman, and Azura Stevens also earning some of those votes. Veronica Burton, though, no surprise there that she wins Most Improved Player. I mean, her point average this year is more than her first 3 seasons combined. Was she on your ballot?
She was. I certainly voted for Veronica. Truly impressed with what she showed this season from start to finish, and currently even in playoffs. She has led this team from the point guard position, which is not easy. Again, it's an expansion team, and so coming in and being the point guard, a whole bunch of new faces, new players who have never had these type of roles. She let everyone kind of get on the same page and allow themselves to be great in their role. And then I thought she just shined in hers from scoring in double figures this season, doing it a multitude of ways, knocking down the 3-point shot consistently, being able to get to the basket. I also was impressed with how she draws fouls throughout the course of a game. She uses her speed and her strength. And then her passing ability, the 6 assists. I just think from an all-around standpoint, she really grew her game all around, and it showed with the opportunity that was at the Valkyries for her to come in, be the point guard, and lead that team. And then she led them to a playoff. So I certainly think that this is well-deserved for Veronica Burton. And knowing the type of player that she is and the family that she comes from, she's going to continue to get better.
100%. And I've said it before so many times, I'll say it again. I think all 5 expansion teams that are coming into the league over the next 5 years can learn a lot of lessons from the Golden State Valkyries, whether it's from a marketing standpoint. The Golden State Valkyries sold so many home games out for a reason, right? The way that they marketed that team, the way that they built up excitement for that team, but also on the court, the way that Natalie Nakase was able to turn that roster, which I say this with all the love in my heart, that felt like the island of misfit toys. Like there was no standout superstar. It was all kind of pieces that either haven't made a name for themselves in the WNBA, or maybe we thought were on the wrong side of the peaks of their careers. And Natalie Nakase was able to put all of these pieces together and obviously turn them into a playoff team. And Veronica Burton is the poster child for what Natalie Nakase was able to build from a roster that seemed lackluster at best just a couple months ago, and now seems like one of the most encouraging rosters in the W.
Yeah, I mean, I was not a believer at first. When they drafted and the pieces that they brought over, I was not a believer that this team was going to have the talent to just make the playoffs. But they proved a lot of us wrong, because it doesn't just take talent. It takes the chemistry. It takes the team bonding. You can tell that this team is on one accord offensively and defensively. You mentioned Coach Nakase, and just what's so impressive, too, is that they have been good on both sides of the basketball. Like, they're one of the slower teams of the WNBA, but it favors them in the games in which they won, because they know how to win that way. They know how to ground it out. And then defensively, that's their calling card. I expect that to be better in game 2 against Minnie, but you have to make adjustments against the best team in the league. But certainly a huge accomplishment for Veronica Burton, Coach Nakase, and company. They did what I don't think many expected them to do. And so you're absolutely right. That standard for expansion teams is set. The bar is high. And the great thing about this is that all the expansion teams coming forward are getting $250 million right away to invest into the brand. And so that is only going to yield results from getting players, from having, better medical staff and a facility and a practice facility. These standards are just continuing to rise. So no, I'm not sure there's a better storyline in the WNBA this season as a whole than what the Valkyries have meant to the league.
It's been hard for me to talk about the Valkyries and not have just like a big smile on my face because they're just so fun to talk about. Kind of that underdog story. Obviously, the first inaugural team or expansion team rather, to get into the postseason in their inaugural season. So, congratulations to the Valkyries, just being here. Congratulations to Veronica Burton. But you mentioned it all while we're talking all the warm and fuzzies about the Golden State Valkyries. Not a whole lot of warm and fuzzy in that game one. They dropped game one, 101-72 to the Minnesota Lynx, the number one seed in the WNBA. It was kind of a slow start from Minnesota. I mean, initially Golden State got up 18-9 midway through the first quarter. They wrapped up the first quarter 28-21, but after that, quarters 2 through 4, Minnesota outscored Golden State 80-44. And I thought one massive tipping point in that first quarter after Minnesota was missing shots, Natisha Collier was missing shots, and it felt like Golden State just everything kept clicking for them. Everything they wanted to do, they were getting done in that first quarter. It was when Natisha Hiedeman came in midway through the first quarter. She has been like a spark plug for that team, and when she came in, it felt like things instantly started to click for Minnesota, and that was the turning point for them to really dominate, really after the first quarter on, but really midway through the first quarter all the way to the end.
Yeah, my first note that I wrote down for this game is their depth and versatility. And you highlighted it, like Natisha Hiedeman from the point guard position, 18 points, guys, did it efficiently as well, 7 of 15 off the bench. You just can't plan for that kind of boost. But if you've been watching the Lynx all season, you're not surprised. Hiedeman at times has come in and been the difference, the spark, and the way that she plays. She gets to her left. She really gets out in transition, just provides a little bit of a different look than a Courtney Williams. And so I love the energy that T brings off the bench. I also will say for this team that they wear you down with their depth. If it's not Kayla McBride hitting shots, it's Williams, and then it's Alana Smith, and then it's Collier you obviously have to worry about. Natisha Hiedeman, Jess Shepard. I mean, they get deeper and deeper, and it just seems like, again, these players are starting to peak at the right time. Like Natisha Hiedeman is probably going to play her best basketball of the season right now in playoffs, and that's what you're looking for. So I thought they looked extremely confident. I circled the third quarter. I feel like they are one of the best teams in the league, if not the best, at making halftime adjustments and coming out in the third quarter and erasing all hope of what you thought could exist. They played chess, not checkers with their adjustments. And so I thought defensively, they closed down some gaps from the Valkyries. They made sure to clean up on the glass. And then offensively, just picking what they wanted, taking very good shots. This is the type of game that I expected. I expected Minnie to come out and nearly score 100 points and be assertive and make sure that they build separation, because you want to start the playoffs confident. You want to come in there with momentum. You don't want to give the other team hope that they can figure it out. And I certainly think that's the point that they got across. Definitely going to be a tough one going on the road all the way to Golden State. And obviously with those fans, I'm excited to just watch it from TV and see the atmosphere that is brought into the arena. But a number of adjustments that the Valks would have to make in order to make sure that game 2 is close, that they have a chance to win.
I just hate that this game is going to be in San Jose and not and not in Valhalla, in the Valkyries' home, which has very quickly been dubbed one of the most difficult places to play in the W. I hate that for Golden State. They've had a tennis event that's been planned for a very long time that they couldn't change. I get it. It happens. Scheduling conflicts are a realistic part of the game, but it's just unfortunate. And I hate that for Golden State. But yeah, like you said, I mean, Minnesota is the best offense and the best defense in the league. And we saw that on full display against the Valkyries. I mean, the Lynx had 5 different players with double-digit points, 42 points coming off the bench. They shot 52% from the field. They held Golden State to 34% from the field, 29% from 3. I mean, not only are they deep, they are so incredibly complete, and they can kill you in so many different ways. They can beat you offensively. They can beat you on the glass. They can beat you defensively. They're just such a deep and complete team. And I mentioned that first quarter. Obviously, it's the first quarter. There's a lot of basketball left to be played at that point. I never felt like Minnesota got rattled. I never felt like Minnesota, got stressed or got, started to lose sight of their game plan. If anything, it was, all right, let's adjust, let's tighten up, and let's get back to what we do best. And they did exactly that. They're just so calm and confident in what they want to do.
And that's what you'd expect, right? I mean, this is a team last year that was heartbroken in Game 5 of the WNBA Finals and was right there ready to win a championship. So to me, that's what you expect. Laser focused. They're not making mistakes. They're not going to beat themselves. I say for the Valkyries, too, like, it's an inexperienced roster in terms of the amount of players who have been in this position before, who have been in playoff play and really had to contribute a major role. But it is tough when your experienced players aren't on the floor. No Tiffany Hayes that was out with a left knee injury. Monique Billings, a 10-year vet in this league now, only played 4 minutes. You just kind of feel like some of those veteran players you really need in order to, steer the ship a bit when things start to get tough. And you could feel the adversity coming. You mentioned it a little bit in that second quarter, but for certain in the third quarter. And it just seems like the Valkyries didn't have an answer. So I think that they will put up a very good fight at home. They're going to have to shoot better. And then defensively, you have to pick your poison. Whether you decide, to allow Natisha Cloud to be her, but then you try to limit other players. Whether you focus on limiting the point guards and Courtney Williams and Natisha Hiedeman and just limiting them off of ball screen action so that the Lynx offense doesn't look as comfortable. But something has got to be just a little bit different for the Valkyries. I'm interested to see what adjustments Coach Natasha makes at back home.
I mean, and they will not go down without a fight. I mean, both of these teams are incredibly physical, but specifically the Valkyries, they play great defense. They're incredibly physical. And that kind of led to some post-game comments from their head coach, Natasha. So I said, I want to get your perspective on this. Fair or foul? Natasha spoke with the media after the game, and she talked about how all of these calls was causing her team to lose their momentum. Every time they started to piece some things together, boom, it was a whistle. Then it was another whistle. She said, quote, "We're playing the #1 team. We are playing the best team in the league. They don't need no help. This team is great. They're stacked. They play well. They play beautiful basketball. They're coached well. They don't need the help." And there were several moments in her post-game press conference where she was kind of, calling out the refs and calling out the way that this game was officiated. Fair or foul? I want to get your perspective on this.
Yeah, I mean, in watching the game, just as a general fan, there were certainly some calls that you were like, oh my goodness, how was that missed or why was that called? But I think that comes with every game. Momentum, I talk about it all the time because I know how important it is in the course of a game. And I understand what Coach Natasha was saying. There were certainly a couple of calls that were made that maybe had changed the momentum of Golden State starting to put together a run, and then boom, someone gets hit with their third foul, or boom, someone gets hit with their fourth foul. I also think this is a team that is trying to compete with the Lynx, and so they're playing physical, right? They're trying to run them off of their, route, be physical on box outs. And so I think you're probably going to see a more physical playoff game anyway. But what I like to say about referees in basketball is just that you just want it to be consistent. Whether it's consistently good or consistently bad, consistently in the middle, you just want it to be consistent so you know what to expect. And so hopefully we see in game 2 that consistency start to build where you know what's going to be called, you know what they're looking out for, and you have to adjust to how the refs are calling the game. But I think every coach in America has said at one point, like, hey, these calls that were made, halted the momentum that our team was making. That's just the game of basketball. It happens that way. But I hope that we see more consistency from what the refs are calling in game 2. And you can say that across the board. We didn't chat yet about Atlanta and Indiana and that series, but certainly if you watch that game, Steph White, head coach for the Fever, was berserk about some of the calls that were made that either were missed or calls that were made that she had to use a challenge to review that had then deemed that it wasn't a foul. And so sometimes those are just as frustrating, right? Like having to call and make sure and say, hey, like you called this a foul, we can go back and we can say that it wasn't, and then it gets taken away. And so you feel like you're using your challenges on mistakes, in which that kind of is what challenges are, right?
Yeah.
It's a time to challenge if the referees, who are human, made a mistake, and to go back and correct that. The issue maybe becomes in that you get challenges, and when you get them successfully, how can you maintain them later in the game? I think the management sometimes of when to use your challenges, whether they're right or wrong, is also something that everyone in the WNBA is trying to figure out because it's the first year we've had them.
And it just makes for a worse product when it feels like every couple of minutes you're stopping, you're reviewing. Like that game that you're referencing, the Indiana-Atlanta game, way too long. Like it just dragged on for way too long. And I get it. You want to get it right more than you want to make the game go by quickly. I understand that. And we'll hit that game here in just a moment. But with Natalie Lacaste's comments, look, I get it. That sometimes as a head coach, you need to do whatever you need to do to get a message across to your players, whether that's, a pregame hype speech in the locker room, or whether that is speaking with the media and talking to your locker room through the media. And that, to me, I felt like was Natalie Lacaste's way of advocating for her team. And she even said as much. She said, I've got players. I've got to make sure that they're good mentally and physically. I have to make sure they're doing everything they can to recover. I've got to keep their minds right. I've got to keep their minds tight. I've got to make sure we're all connected. Yeah. I think that was kind of her way of being the team's advocate, of being a voice to her team and speaking to reporters for her team and being their representative. And look, sometimes coaches do this in any sport, in any professional league. Sometimes coaches will call out the refs to the media. They'll eat the fine that they might get from the league and hope that that might change the way that games are called in the future. Like you said, refs are human. Refs have bias. Refs make mistakes. It's an unfortunate but realistic part of the game. So I understand that Natalie Lacaste is kind of, being a tactician here and using her resources to speak to whoever she needs to speak to. I also don't think that refereeing is going to be the difference of this game. Like, this was a 30-point game. And so what I wouldn't think Natalie Lacaste is doing, but what I would fear if I'm a Valkyries fan is that they can point to the refs and say, well, that's what lost us this game. There's no adjustments that we need to make, because that just wasn't the case. Yeah. The Minnesota Lynx were the better team for an overwhelming majority of that game. And had the calls gone just a little bit differently, this still would have been a dominant victory for the Lynx.
Yeah. I think that's fair to say. I mean, it's tough when, momentum is what we think is being stopped or halted because of these fouls. And so I'm sure, Coach Lacaste would say otherwise. She'd be like, you never know what type of run we were going to go on if we had gotten that call. Absolutely.
Fair.
But it is. I mean, because that's the game of basketball. But also, my thing is just consistency. I don't know if there would be as many complaints, or if there would be as many coaches that are speaking out on issues with, what the refs are calling or how they're calling it, if at least was consistent throughout the season that these things are being called. But it's just tough, too, when, a call is missed and it's blatant. You go back to the film and it's clearly that this thing that was called didn't happen. It's just frustrating. Again, I'm happy that we have challenges within the game, but the management of those and how, coaches can move forward and have their challenges late in game. I certainly know the game we're about to talk about, Steph White wishes she had a couple of those back later because she was right and just didn't have any more. It's an element of the game. I think in playoffs, you just don't want the referees to decide the game. Right. I know as a player playing in March Madness in those type of atmospheres, you just don't want the referees to decide how the game ends up.
And I think Lynx fans are saying, yeah, we get it. We agree. We don't want referees to decide the outcome of the game. That's something they've been screaming for about a full calendar year. So not saying anything that the Lynx don't know, but you just mentioned it. Steph White's comments about the referees. Steph White got teed up for her exact frustration with the officiating, and the Fever's lost 80-68 to the Atlanta Dream. I mean, they took care of business. It was obviously a very shorthanded Indiana Fever team. Alicia Gray, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals. 19 of her 20 points came from free throws. So again, back to officiating. Ryan Howard, 20 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, 4 threes in that game. I thought the Atlanta Dream, not only, those stat lines that I just rattled off, Alicia Gray and Ryan Howard getting it done offensively, the Dream defense was absolutely stifling. Kelsey Mitchell took care of business. She is going to continue to take care of business. She had 27 points. Odyssey Sims had 10, but that was it. Those were the only 2 Fever players that had double-digit points. Aaliyah Boston, 8. She wasn't good enough. Natasha Howard, 5 on the evening. She was not good enough. Only 9 points off the bench for the Indiana Fever. Yes, the Fever need to be better offensively, but I have to tip my cap to the Atlanta Dream. Their defense, I think, has been under-talked about really all season long.
Yeah, 100%. To me, they were the aggressor in this game. And it was back and forth there for a while. I thoroughly enjoyed watching Alicia Gray and Kelsey Mitchell trade baskets in the first half. I'm like, this is like must-see TV. Let me get my popcorn and sit down and buckle in. Two really good guards who were scoring the basketball. You highlighted it too, Ryan Howard. To me, for Atlanta, if you're really starting to see the depth with this team, the players that they have come off the roster that they send in waves, players that are committed to playing both sides of the basketball. I thought Brianna Jones and Brittany Griner inside really held it down. Even though Brittany Griner only played 8 minutes, which was all she really needed to play. And at this point in BG's career, if you can escape a playoff game without having to play more and allow Brianna Jones to handle the most, then absolutely. But to me, those two set the tone inside that Indiana wasn't going to be able to score inside. And that was important. That, hey, we can let Kelsey Mitchell go off. We know that she's going to put up a bucket. We know she's going to have to score big numbers. But inside, can we limit them inside? Aaliyah Boston, you said it, 8 points. Natasha Howard, only 5 points. I hate that Aaliyah Boston only shot 9 shots. I feel like at this point in the season, if you're the Fever, she has to get up double-digit shots because of her field goal percentage, because what she means to this team and the different ways she can score. But I'll say it, though. I thought Atlanta had a perfect plan on how to guard the interior for the Fever, and that's where they missed points. Also, though, I will say, only scoring 68 points hurts. You got to find a way to score more than 75 points in a playoff game. You have to, right? Or you have to rely on your defense. And right now, with the lack of depth for the Fever, I don't think you can rely on that, right? You have to rely on putting points on the board. So I'm expecting to see more out of Natasha Howard, but definitely more out of Aaliyah Boston. And I mean, she had double-digit rebounds and 12. I just kind of felt like a lot of the shots that she took were either heavily contested where she had to work really hard to get open, or she kind of just missed them because of fatigue. But again, that's that defense that you were talking about for Atlanta.
It wears you down.
Man, they just looked tired and getting through it. Even Kelsey Mitchell, like the 27 points that she scored efficiently, 50% from the field, 9 of 18. All the shots that she took were hard shots. You know, unless she's blowing past you and using her last quick step to finish, she's coming off screens. She's being met with physicality, right? There's someone that is bumping her shoulder to shoulder. And so I think Atlanta had a really nice game plan for how they wanted to win this game, which was, hey, the perimeter can do what the perimeter can do, but we're going to make sure that we limit the interior of the Fever. And that's where they missed some points and missed some opportunities. But make no mistake about it, though, the game was close. The game was close. Even when it started to get out of hand, it was like, the Fever are just a couple buckets away, a couple plays away. At some points, a couple calls away from momentum. Now, I think if Steph White had gotten on there and said, hey, momentum killed our team and some of these plays killed our team, absolutely. I was watching that game like, man, if that had not been called a foul and instead had been a charge, they could have gone the other way and cut this thing to within 10. So I certainly think that there were some momentum plays with the calls that maybe distracted the Fever a little bit. I know this is a franchise that, again, has been very vocal about the referees and kind of what they expect, but it seemed like there was an opportunity for the Fever to win this game, even with how poorly Natasha Howard and Aaliyah Boston were scoring. You get one of them on one accord where they can score in double digits, keep Odyssey Sims attacking, and bring a little bit production off the bench, you can possibly win game 2 at home. And I think, like, if I was the Fever, I would go into that confidently. You make some adjustments, you get some better looks for your interior players, you still make sure that Kelsey Mitchell stays hot, you have an opportunity to win the next game at home.
And that's what we talked about on our playoff preview pod, which, of course, you can find on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page, wherever you get your podcasts. The Fever can mess around and steal one of these games, if not win the entire series.
Yeah.
Now, if I'm a Fever fan, obviously you're bummed. Obviously, you don't love the offensive effort and the offensive output that you saw in game 1. But I think if you want to look at it from a glass half full mentality, yes, it was a 12-point game, but at times it didn't feel like that. That you feel confident that Kelsey Mitchell is going to get hers, because even in a 27-point performance, I felt like there was still some meat on the bone. Like there were still some points left to be had. The Dream defense was just so incredibly stifling. So if you can feel confident about Kelsey Mitchell getting hers in whatever form or fashion that might be, you feel confident that you can get more from Aaliyah Boston after some adjustments after this first game. You feel confident that you can get some more from Lexi Hull or Natasha Howard or from your entire bench. So I think you should feel optimistic, maybe energized, that just a couple of tweaks here and there, a couple calls here and there that go your way rather than the Dream's way, and you are at home in an environment that I feel like is going to be absolutely raucous and rowdy, Why not? Like, why couldn't the Fever steal game 2? But I'll ask you guys, what does the Fever have to do for Aaliyah Boston and Natasha Howard and Lexi Hull to get theirs? What adjustments do they need to make to steal game 2? I guess that wouldn't be steal, to take game 2 at home.
100%. I think sometimes with the interior presence of Atlanta, whether it's Jones or Griner, you got to bring them out of the paint, right? Make it a game in which they have to get out of the paint, so that opens up more of the paint, whether that through ball screen action or drags in transition. But you need to get these big, huge, strong players that are taking up the paint out of the paint, so it opens up more space. And then shooting on the outside. If you're Steph White, you're going to the next game, you're saying, yo, we shot 35% from the field, 13% from 3. We have more than capable shooters on the team, including post players that can shoot above 30% for this team, that could shoot 40% for this team. So I think you say, hey, take our time. When we get our looks at home, open, in rhythm, catch and shoot, knock it down. And then I think the player to keep your eye on is Lexi Hull. If Lexi Hull can pull a little bit of her weight from shooting on the outside to counterbalance either a Ryan Howard knocking down threes or an Alicia Gray knocking down threes, then you can start to even the battle a little bit. But you need a player, I think, to knock down some threes. Again, I believe that this team can shoot better than 2 of 15. And then find more opportunities for Aaliyah Boston to get easier, better touches. I know that throughout this season, I'm sure it's been tough for Aaliyah Boston because she was really finding her groove with Caitlin Clark. And they were clicking on one-on-one accord. And with the amount of guards that have been lost this season for the Fever, I mean, it's 6, 7 at this point. She played with so many new guards that she's still trying to build chemistry with them. You can see it on the court when she's screening and rolling, maybe looking for her to pop, or, you know, she went to slip and they didn't see it necessarily. But I do believe that Aaliyah Boston can be the X factor for them against a big and strong team in Atlanta, that if you want to win a game at home, knock down some more shots from the outside and find a way to get Boston some easier shots on the inside. But Atlanta only scored 80 points. I mean, this was a game. Like you said, even when it looked a little bit like it was getting out of hand, I'm like, hey, they're a couple plays away from being able to get back into this. So hopefully if you're the Fever at home, you can be the aggressor. You can start off strong and then hopefully you shoot a little bit better. And the rest of it, you just got to play the game as it happens.
To that point about Atlanta, you know, if you're Indiana, yes, you can hope and you can expect that they might shoot better than 35% from the field, but Atlanta only shot 38% from the field. It's not like, if you just break down the numbers, it's not like it was, you know, an overly lopsided win one way or another. So I think this is absolutely a series that could potentially go to 3. We'll have some spicy takes at the end of the show, but I don't want that to undermine what the Dream did, because I think that we need to be talking about Atlanta's defense, because Atlanta's defense absolutely can get them, you know, to the next round, and they can steal a couple of games, you know, in round 2, whatever it might be. But this is not a series that I'm willing to put on ice quite yet. So I know that there's a couple of things that could have gone differently that the Fever are just stewing over. Another thing that could have gone differently in this other game, you know, Liberty steal game 1 in overtime in Phoenix. Our girl Cassandra Negley was there. She was boots on the ground. She has some great reporting on that game on sports.yahoo.com. We'll get Cass's full account of that series whenever she's back. She's traveling to New York. She's been covering that series and will continue to cover that series. But I know Alyssa Thomas wants that missed layup back. That Alyssa Thomas had the opportunity to put that game away in regulation. She misses a layup. The Liberty take that game to overtime. Phoenix was only able to muster up 4 points in overtime. They didn't score a single point until over 3.5 minutes into that overtime period. So it just felt like once the Liberty were able to extend that game, we were just like, hey, this is our opportunity. Like we are opening the door to be able to seal this game. Game 1, the Liberty take it 76-69 in overtime. Ice, what were some of your biggest takeaways from this one?
Man, what a thriller.
This one was such a good game.
Such a good game. I mean, this is what you would expect, right? Out of a 4-5 matchup, you expect it to go down to the wire. Credit to the Liberty, because this team has been inconsistent at home and on the road. But what we knew is that if you can steal the first one on the road, how much better is it to go home? Already one under your belt, saying we just need to win one more in Brooklyn. And so I was impressed with the different ways in which the Liberty put together moments in the fourth quarter and in overtime. Obviously, they dominated in overtime. I'm not really sure what happened with Phoenix's offense, but it went non-existent. I don't necessarily think it was the Liberty defense. I just think it was Phoenix taking bad shots, poor shots, early shots in overtime. They had the opportunity to win. You mentioned it. I'm not sure what better look you could get than Alyssa Thomas spinning from her left to her right and a layup off the glass. I'm just not sure what better look you can get. I think that's the way Nick Tibbetts drew it up. And so I think that was a look that they wanted. First thought, is Stewie okay?
Yes.
Is Stewie okay?
My heart went out to her when they panned to her on the sidelines. She's
literally
sitting there and like her knee was already covered up with that sleeve, but she's sitting there with tears rolling down her face and she looks miserable. Like I just, my heart went out to her and to that entire Liberty team that's just been setback after setback after injury setback. Really the last month and some change.
Same, Caroline, same. I mean, I've dealt with knee injuries and like you said, as soon as I saw her face, I'm just like, this is tough. You know, this is tough. We know that Stewie is the glue for that team. She is the emotional leader. She is the leader on the floor. She erases so many weaknesses that New York has, especially defensively. She oftentimes is a savior offensively because she just makes Stewie-like plays that we can't really plan for. Thank God for New York, though. They had a point guard show up in Natasha Cloud. Man, I say this every year, but how important it is to have a point guard that is on their P's and Q's come playoff time. That is often the teams who win championships, who are championship-led. I thought Natasha Cloud did a great job of distributing on the ball. I thought she did a great job of scoring the basketball. 23 points for her, 9 of 12. She also had 3 threes. I mean, you just had to guard her everywhere on the floor, along with 5 assists. So to me, she had a complete game. Had to play 40 minutes. That was another issue. Was Stewie played 40 minutes, including a little bit in that overtime. Ionescu, 43 minutes in overtime. So we're talking about a team that is going back to New York that plays on Wednesday, but that is going to be tired because a lot of their main players played 40 minutes. I thought it was interesting that only 3 players played off the bench for New York. We only saw Emma Mieseman for 13 minutes. I mean, this is a player that has...
Why was that?
You know what? Okay. I thought about this, and this is what I wrote down. I wrote down trust. I think for Sandy Brondello, you go with the squad that you trust. You go with the squad that has played together, that has been in these moments before. The main 8 or 7 aside of Mieseman that we saw playing were on the team last year. Besides Rebecca Gardner, just the starting 5 is who she had to go with. The entire starting 5 played 35 plus minutes. 35 plus minutes.
3 starters played 40 plus.
Yes. The entire starting 5. So to me, it just showed trust. It showed, hey, we're playing a gritty Mercury team and we're on the road. I need to go with my guns that I trust, and I'm going with the starters. And Mieseman played 13 minutes, but she was nowhere to be found down the stretch of this game as it gotten close. Even with, the Stewie injury. You're looking like, hey, what can we do next? Who can fill that void of offense and defense? So it was interesting to me. I thought the Phoebus 3 was the dagger at the end that they very much needed, which was a clutch bucket. But where did that come from? A drive and assist from Natasha Cloud. So to me, the point guard play is what I wanted to highlight in that one for New York. You certainly hope that Breanna Stewart is okay. You do not want to watch playoff basketball and watch New York and not see Stewie on the floor. But the only thing that I could say positive for them is that they're going back home. You're up 1-0. Even though there's pressure to win in playoffs, it's not do or die pressure right now. You did what you needed to do, was to steal one on the road. You go back home and you get some rest. And then I think we have to expect to see more of the bench for the second game. I expect to see a couple minutes from Isabel Harrison. I expect to see a couple minutes from Maureen Johannes. I mean, you have to play these other players just to give some a blow. I don't think Ionescu can go another 40. I don't think Natasha Cloud can efficiently go another 40 the way in which you want them to play. But 4 out of 5 starters in double figures. Again, Natasha Cloud's play was awesome. New York steals one on the road. You can't be surprised because they're the defending champs, and you knew they weren't coming to play. But certainly just some caution, some concern you have for them with the health of Breanna Stewart.
That's the biggest concern, I think, is the health of Breanna Stewart, because it's not just what you miss not having Breanna Stewart, a healthy Breanna Stewart out there on the court. It's how do you strategically try to replace that? And like you said, you don't want Sabrina Ionescu playing another 40. Can she even play another 40? Because I think the biggest red flag that would bring up for the New York Liberty is if they go home. Let's say Sabrina Ionescu plays another 40. Let's say they lose that game. They go back to Phoenix. That's another long road trip where you're traveling 3 different time zones. And now one of your star players is down with an injury. It's Monday afternoon. We haven't heard any updates from Sandy Brondello of the status and the availability of Breanna Stewart. But all we know is it looked bad. It didn't look great. So now you're down Breanna Stewart. You have Sabrina Ionescu, who's played 40 plus the last 2 games, and they've gone to Phoenix, back to New York, now on the way back to Phoenix, assuming that this series does go to a game 3. Now you're gassed. Now Phoenix goes back home, and they had one starter play 40 in that first game. So now you're kind of playing from behind. The advantage that you have going back home, I think, is one that the Liberty has to take advantage of to be able to close this out. Because if the Liberty, let's say, win it in 3, now you're that much further behind. You just went on 2 West Coast road trips. You're going into the semifinals absolutely gassed. So that's one thing that I think you have to look out for the Liberty. Also, clean up the turnovers. 20 turnovers for the Liberty in that game. And look, you got to win. Great. You stole a game on the road. You can be happy about that. You have the advantage there, but you have to clean up the turnovers.
Yep. We've seen this all season from this team. I've had several of their games throughout the summer. We've seen it all season. Sometimes they're just making the pass that isn't the easy pass. That isn't the simple pass. Sometimes they're going too fast, or they're just going where there are 4 people already. Like, go where there's maybe 2 people and a little bit more space. And so I think sometimes just making the simple play is literally what Sandy Brondello has told us about this squad. The same could be said, though, of the Phoenix Mercury. I'm not sure. I feel like if you're New York, you won 1 on the road and you go back home and you're happy that you're back home. And besides the Breanna Stewart injury, you're feeling good and you're feeling positive. But if you really think about it, the Phoenix Mercury played a very ugly basketball game. That did not look good to me. Satu Sabally going 2 of 17. 1 of 10 from 3. Alyssa Thomas going 7 of 18. Kalia Copper, 5 of 13. I got one more for you. Ego Makani, the rookie, 2 of 11. I mean, as a team, they shot 32%. But if you watched in real time some of the shots that were being taken, it was just purely bad shot selection. I'm sorry. I can't even sugarcoat it, because it wasn't even like, oh, that was an open shot and it was early, so you should take that. Like, no, these are bad shots that you're taking down the stretch. I know that Alyssa Thomas is known as a point forward, but here's what I really thought about. I really thought about in the middle of that game that Phoenix needed a strict just point guard on the floor that was just going to facilitate and make sure that the right people got the right shots. And you could see down the stretch the last couple of minutes of the game, but definitely overtime, they did not and were not on the same page with getting great shot selection. And several of their shots were too early, by the wrong person, not a good open clean shot, and New York rebounded, came down, made their shots, and that was overtime. Overtime was over very quickly because New York decided that they wanted to capitalize. On the other side, the Mercury were chucking up quick shots. I don't expect Satu Sabally to go 2 for 17 again, but certainly, though, at some point, this is my challenge. At some point, if you're shooting and it's not going in, how else are you affecting the game? Like, then I'm not necessarily seeing the defensive prowess on the other side of the basketball to make sure that you're still being a factor. You just can't shoot shots and miss shots and then that be it. And so I think there's a challenge on some of the players for the Mercury. Another player that always hustles defensively and tries to be gritty but was in foul trouble was Kalia Copper. Like, they need Copper on the floor in order to be the Phoenix Mercury that they want to be. She has to find a way to still be as dynamic on defense and gritty, but also to not get in foul trouble. And then I expect Ka to be a little bit more efficient too. I think 5 of 13. She missed a couple shots she should have made. Hey, maybe it's the first playoff game. There wasn't a lot of time in between the end of the regular season and playoffs. And so some players are still obviously exhausted, but hopefully this trip back to New York, I think, gets the Mercury on one accord with what they're looking for offensively in the clutch. When it's the middle of the game, first 3 quarters, and then transition, or they're playing the half court, it's fine. You miss those shots, you get rebounds, it's okay. But the last 8 minutes of that basketball game, offensively, they did not execute at a high level, and that's why New York stole one.
I mean, you mentioned how Phoenix shot 32% from the field, which, you know, not great. But I feel like just the overall attempts, 25 of 77. Ew. Like that sounds worse than their field goal percentage. Just the makes versus attempts. 25 of 77. You cannot just chuck it up and say a prayer. Not against this Liberty team. Even if it's a Liberty team that limped into the playoffs. You cannot win playoff games that way. But let's wrap it up with our fourth and final game that we saw. Game 1, round 1. The Aces won their 17th straight game. Let me say that again for everybody in the back. The Aces just won their 17th straight game. They're now 1 win away. Knock on wood, I'm not jinxing anything. 1 win away from tying the WNBA record. They won their 17th game and they did it in dramatic fashion. Ice 102-77 win over Seattle. A'ja Wilson, 29 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists. We saw Jackie Young put up 18 points as well. I mean, the Aces had, I have it in my notes here somewhere, 34 points off the bench, 14 threes from the Las Vegas Aces. I mean, what they did was spectacular. It pops off the page. We've gotten used to it.
Yeah.
I don't want to take this for granted, but I've gotten used to this with the Las Vegas Aces. I almost look at this as kind of like a snooze fest kind of game because the Aces did what they do. They went in, they took care of business. They beat up on a team that has been wildly inconsistent in the Seattle Storm all season long. That I don't want to take this for granted. We are watching greatness in Las Vegas, but I almost feel like I am, Ice, because that's just what this Aces team does and has done over the last 17 games.
Man, it's fun to watch. It's beautiful to watch. Both sides of the basketball, they are electric. I mean, we can talk offense all day, right? We can talk about how they shot 50% from the field, 48% from 3, knocked down 14 threes. But to me, it was the defense. It's like Nalissa Smith out here blocking shots left and right. It's A'ja erasing shots. It's, Jackie Young, even Chelsea Gray, like getting tips and deflections. Like that looked like playoff basketball to me. That looked like we're going to come in here and set the tone right away that we are here to win. To me, their 3-point shooting, the ball movement, the 23 assists, the field goal percentage and the way that they shot, you don't do those numbers and like get to those numbers without winning basketball games. So like that to me was inevitable. On paper, they were good. I also want to shout out Dana Evans. As much as the main guards of this team are so important, the Jackie Youngs, the Chelsea Grays, etc., Joel Lloyds, Dana Evans, 13 points, 5 of 11, 6 assists and 4 rebounds is clutch. Guard play is so important, and Dana Evans looked confident and mature playing basketball with the Aces. I thought that they just have a number of X factors that other teams maybe aren't looking for, circling on their scout. But between her, Cheyenne Parker-Tyus, I mean, you just have different players that you need to worry about at this point in the season, which is nice. A nice luxury for Becky Hammon.
Cheyenne Parker-Tyus, new mom energy.
New mom energy. Come on, mamas. On the other side for Seattle, I'm going to say this very clearly. Seattle needs everyone to have a good game in order for them to have a chance to beat the Aces. You need every single player that steps on the court to have a good basketball game. You cannot beat the Aces with Brittany Sykes having 0 points. It just can't happen. And I know that was an off game for her. She played 16 minutes, a little bit of foul trouble. It just looks like an inconsistent game. She finished with 5 fouls, but they needed her to score the basketball a little bit more. Ezi Magvagor played 24 minutes, only 2 points. I'm sorry, but you got to score more than that, right? That needs to be like 8 points. That needs to be like 8 and 8, and then getting on the offensive boards. I thought that, Nneka Ogwumike and Skylar Diggins tried, but at some point, very early, it seemed like maybe there was like 6 minutes left in the third. It's a 20-point game at halftime. You're just kind of like, I don't think they're coming back from this. There are other games in which it's a 20-point game at halftime, and you're like, hey, they need to make crazy adjustments, and it's going to get better. I wasn't sure that a 180 was going to happen with Seattle. I felt like they were trying to execute the game plan, and the Aces were just better. So to me, all players have to get on one accord, but in order for Seattle to have a chance, you need every player on the roster. I'm not exaggerating. You need every player on the roster to play a good basketball game to be mature with the basketball, to get the right shots up. They didn't shoot terrible percentages. 43% from the field, 38% from three. That's not terrible at all. But there needs to be more players who are scoring the basketball. I continue to be impressed with the rookie and Dominique Malunga. Even though she had missed some gimme shots here or there and only went 4 of 11 from the field, she still had a double-double in her first career playoff game. So shout out to the rookie for hooping. But to me, there's no scheme for Seattle. Like, there are too many players and too many weapons for the Aces. The scheme for Seattle is, can you make the Aces work on defense? Can you make them guard every single person on the floor and make good decisions with the basketball offensively consistently, because you are the more experienced team in terms of age? And so I think if you're Seattle, that's how you go into the next game. I think being home is great. But to be honest, I'm not sure what would stop this Aces momentum and fire. I don't really know if it can be stopped. I think it might be a game in which they have to beat themselves in order for them to lose a game right now.
And they're not beating themselves. That's the thing. And I said on our pre-playoff pod, I thought, why can't Seattle mess around and steal a game here or there? Because they have so much experience. They've been here before. And I do think there's an element of being there before that's important in the playoffs. And if you want to make a run in the playoffs, I know we're one game in. I know anything can happen in the playoffs. I know on any given night, anyone in Seattle's team can get right and have a big game. But you just can't afford to have bad games in the playoffs. And after one game, I'm willing to say maybe I was wrong. I'm willing to say that maybe the Storm, the experience just isn't enough against this Aces team. Because I think another thing that makes the Aces so dangerous is, I was listening to A'ja Wilson's comments post-game. She was saying, like, y'all are talking about the streak way more than we're talking about it. Like, we're not worried about this streak. That streak ended in the regular season. Like, it's the playoffs. We need to win 9 games. Who cares about how many games we ended the regular season with? And that mentality is so dangerous. And it surprises me 0%. That's the kind of mentality that A'ja Wilson has. And that's the kind of mentality I think is a trickle-down effect from the top, whether it's Becky Hammon or A'ja Wilson herself, down to the rest of that roster. That's a very scary mentality to be playing with. Is everything that we did doesn't matter anymore. It's done. Yeah. It's achieved. We did it. We're moving on. We're on to the next one.
Spoken like someone who's won a championship.
True. Spoken like a league MVP previously and potentially this year as well. But I do want to get into our kind of spicy hot takes as we get into the next game. Which of these series, Ice, do you think is most likely to go to 3 games?
Yeah, definitely Phoenix, New York. If there's any chance that Stewie is not 100%, you look at Phoenix, you want to go back on the road, be the villain on the road, go in Barclays where there's a ton of energy to deflate and play better basketball. Phoenix, did not shoot the ball well, didn't take great shot selection. To me, these are things that are within your control that you can fix and adjust to. And so I expect to see a better game plan out of the Mercury. I think that they can win one. It's going to be tough to win in Barclays with the energy of that crowd. I'm even thinking about going to the game because I'm just like, man, like how electric is that going to be? But I think if there's a chance for any game to go to game 3, it is this series, the 4-5 series.
What are those ticket prices looking like? I'm going to pull it up right now because I would assume they are pricey. I know fans have already, kind of expressed their frustration with how expensive these tickets have been. Okay, let me just pull it up really.
A couple of years ago, they were upset that no one was going to games, and now half of us can't afford it.
Seriously.
We don't want that either. I
have a mortgage to pay. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. Okay, so VIP tickets are over $2,000. Okay. Love that for VIPs. That's not for me. Get-in price is $43 in the absolute nosebleeds.
Okay. That's real high up there. I mean, you're up there. But
real high.
Yeah.
You're closer to God than you are the court. But that is at least, not the worst price in the world. But like if you want decent seats, you're looking at well over $100, if not into the $200-300 range. Yeah. So, I mean, good for Ellie. Get her bag, but also not great.
New York basketball.
New York basketball is correct.
What you looking forward to? Do you have a different series that you think is going to 3 games?
I'm with you. I think I would be 0% surprised if and when, frankly, that series does go to 3. But I'll throw out the Fever Dream. I mean, the Fever outside of Kelsey Mitchell played just about as bad offensively as you could. And it was still a 12-point game. Like the Fever were still very much so in that game. So I have to think that there won't be 2 games in a row where the Fever are shooting 34% from the field and 13% from 3 when they go 2 of 15 from beyond the arc. Like, I cannot believe that the Fever are going to be that bad offensively. And look, again, credit to the Dreams defense when you take nothing away from Atlanta's defense. But they go home in an incredibly loud environment. I know they're going to pack that place out. They're not going to be as bad as they were shooting in game 1. So I'm going to say I agree with you that I think that Liberty series is most likely to go to 3. I think that Fever Dream series is probably a very close second, but I'm looking forward to seeing how all of these games pan out. We've got Atlanta, Indiana, and Las Vegas, Seattle coming up on Tuesday night. And then Phoenix, New York, Minnesota, Golden State round out the action with game 2 on Wednesday night. If any of these series goes to game 3, those Tuesday night matchups will be on Thursday. Those Wednesday night matchups will be on Friday. And we will be right back here later on this week, giving you a full breakdown of all the game 2 and game 3 action if needed right here on Hoops 360. She is Ice Young. I am Caroline Fenton. Cassandra Negley normally is with us, but Cass is on the road. She's covering that Phoenix, New York series, so make sure to check out sports.yahoo.com for all of Cass's games breakdowns. And you can find us here on the Yahoo Sports YouTube page or wherever you get your podcasts. We will see you later on this week.